Fine editions in the middle of the month? A surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. Hello there, welcome back to the channel. I am Grand Moff Tony. Yes, it is once again time for one of my favourite video formats that we do on this channel. It's time to take a look at the newest additions to my collection. It is time once more for Fine Editions.
Fine addition to my collection.
We've had some great additions to the collection these past 2 months, and I'm very excited to get into it, so let's talk about them. Up first was a new addition not only to the collection itself, but to the Grand Moff Tony background, because I added the 40th anniversary Jabba the Hutt to my collection. I was so pleased to get this in hand. Obviously, I kind of knocked together my own kind of Jabba's Palace display with a single figure Jabba, some 3D printed custom bits for his throne, and then I had a vintage 1983 hookah that was ever so slightly underscaled, and that was kind of how I had it. I had a little custom 3D printed Salacious that I painted myself. I was happy with it, but I will be perfectly honest, I snapped up the opportunity to get this set when he came back around, and I am so glad that I did, because nothing compares to the real thing itself. The Jabba himself is very similar to the original Jabba. I think if I were to drop the two of them on the floor, it wouldn't quite be as difficult as, like, Skiff-Guard Lando to identify which one was the original and which one was the new one. There's different paint apps here and there, and the face is ever so slightly more detailed, but for the most part, it is the same figure. It's just got an updated paint job on it. He still has that great laughing gimmick that I love so much. It's a decent Jabba figure, it really is, and seeing him in Black Series scale, it's kind of impressive, to be honest. But the real draw on this set for me was the throne rail, the hookah, and Salacious, and in that regard, this set ticked all of my boxes. That little Salacious is so poseable, I love it, and nothing compares to the grandiose nature of that real, official Black Series hookah. I absolutely love it. I decided a long time ago that Jabba's Palace was going to be part of my YouTube background, and yeah, I'm really glad that I did, because this looks great. Part of the way through October, on a one-off trip to GameStop, I came away with the all-new, updated sculpt R2-D2 for the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi, and my goodness, what a fantastic figure this is. Now, I only ever had one R2-D2 figure before this. I had the Empire Strikes Back 40th anniversary Dirty Dagobah R2, and yeah, you can see he's small, he's out of scale, and that's part of the reason why I never really went out looking for any other R2 figures. You know, they're all going to have the same flaws, they're all going to be the same mold, why would I do that? So when they announced that this new R2-D2 was coming, that was it. That's the one I'm getting. The scaling is perfect now, and he comes with all those great accessories that you got with the original R2-D2 way back when the Black Series first started. It's just, he's the right size now. He's got a great paint job on him. Honestly, I would be hard pressed to not put this figure on the top 10 best of the year, simply because of all the boxes that this figure ticks that the previous versions failed to. And of course, we're now seeing a great renaissance of Black Series astromech droids coming through the line, and we're getting updated versions of other astromechs that we already have that are all just ever so slightly smaller. Yeah, I really don't know what to say about this. It is such a good figure. Like that, as big of a fan as I am of the laughing gimmick on Jabba, I have never liked the twist the astromech's head around to get the foot to pop out gimmick. Because, like, you get the foot out, and then you try to position the head so he looks kind of dynamic, and it sucks the foot back in. And I don't know why we did that. Why did we do that to ourselves? It's not fun. This new R2-D2 has everything. I absolutely love him. He is a very welcome addition to my collection. On the same trip to GameStop, I came away with my second Imperial Royal Guard. I said last time I did one of these videos that I had picked up one, I needed to track down the other. Well, all I had to do was go back to the very same GameStop, and I came away with my second Royal Guard figure. I said pretty much everything that I had to say about this figure in last time's Fine Editions, so I won't dwell on this figure for too long, but it's fantastic. If you don't have at least two of these guys, you are really missing out, and they are fantastic figures. But on that same trip to GameStop where I came away with those two, I also found the Ahsoka series edition of Sabine Wren, and this figure blows my mind. Like, it's so cool. I absolutely adore it. I have spent evenings sitting on my couch putting this figure in different poses and just being absolutely thrilled with it. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the Ahsoka series, and Star Wars Rebels is my favourite Star Wars anything, so anything related to Star Wars Rebels will just immediately get me interested, and this Sabine figure is no exception to the rule. It is, of course, the updated live-action version of the more adult Sabine, and I am absolutely thrilled with that, and the armour is so cool. This figure just looks great. It's got so much attitude to it. You can pose it in so many ways that you can feel Sabine coming out of this figure, and I love it. Whether it's got the helmet on, helmet off, it just feels like Sabine. I feel like it is ever so slightly shorter than the original Rebels Sabine, but maybe that's just like artist interpretation and it's more important to the Black Series to be true to the actor's height. Or maybe it's just this trend that we're seeing mostly in the Ahsoka line so far, where figures are ever so slightly underscaled, and I imagine we'll probably get to that whenever I pick up Baylan and Shin, because I think those two, from what I've seen so far, are the biggest offenders from the whole lot. But for right now, this Sabine figure is fantastic. I love it. It is such a fine addition to my collection. Up next, one of my regular viewers sent me the deluxe Black Chrysanthemum from Book of Boba Fett. This figure obviously comes from Nicholas over at the True Nicholas or Our Commander Nicholas, and I am so pleased with it. It is a marked improvement over the original comic variant, which I still like. I still like that figure a lot, and I will still find a place for it in my collection, but it will no longer be as part of my Book of Boba Fett display, because this Black Chrysanthemum is just everything you've always wanted from this character. He is bulky, he is imposing, that gun is bigger than some Black Series figures, so that's pretty cool. There is such an immense amount of detail on this guy. I am endlessly pleased with him. He just looks awesome. No matter what way you pose him, how you stand him, he just looks great. He looms over Boba and Fennec, which is really what you want from a Black Chrysanthemum figure. And yeah, you know what? He may be shorter than the Chewbacca figures, but I kind of feel like those Chewbacca figures are actually overscaled. I could be wrong. I've never really busted out a measuring tape to check how tall they are, but I've always kind of looked at those Chewbacca figures and been like, is he actually that tall though? I'm not trying to give credit to this figure by pulling another figure down, because we don't do that on this channel, but this Black Chrysanthemum figure is absolutely incredible. 100% worthy of the deluxe title as far as I'm concerned. Just for bulk, his paint apps, the updated details on his armor, I absolutely love it. It's a fantastic figure. It was a fantastic gift. Thank you very much, Nicholas. I really appreciate it. And yeah, he is a fine addition to my collection indeed. Up next, we have the finds from the Kentucky Toy Hunt. This was when we popped down to Kentucky for a weekend and we hit some toy stores on the way back. And the first one that we found was the Season 2 Omega. This is so much better than the Season 1 version, I can't even begin to put it into words. I like that Season 1 version, but it's a very specific Omega. It's very specific to the opening 2 episodes, and after that, it kind of feels a little bit awkward. But this figure comes with everything that you want, because it comes with 2 alternate heads. Alternate heads which are compatible with that original figure. So a lot of people have just got like the Season 1 Omega with the helmetless look from the Season 2 head stuck on top, and that looks great. I was going to do that too, until I realized I absolutely adore this new, ever so slightly older Omega figure. She looks fantastic, and she scales really well with the original Bad Batch figures. You kind of feel like she does fit in more with that crew than she does in that kind of odd Kaminoan blue uniform. Honestly, if this figure is anything to go by, I cannot wait to get my hands on the Phantom Menace Anakin figure. These kid scale figures are so good. They've been brilliant so far. I'm very pleased with them, and yeah, Omega is no exception to that rule whatsoever. She's a brilliant figure. She looks great with the rest of the Bad Batch crew. I'm just so pleased with it. and the option to include not only 2 heads, but 2 variants for her weapons as well. You've got the open bow that the original Omega figure comes with, and you've also got a new collapsed bow that sits brilliantly on her back. Basically, that's how I have her posed all the time. She has the bow on her back, and she's just sort of hanging out with her brothers, and I love it. She is a brilliant addition to the collection from this month. On that same toy hunt, we picked up the Target exclusive Commander Apo. What a great update to the 501st Clone Trooper figure. As much as I love that old archive figure that came out, this is just, it blows it out of the water. It's new, the articulation is so clean and so perfectly engineered. He just looks so natural in all manner of military poses. And you also have the option to just pop that head off and you've got yourself a helmetless clone trooper. And really, without the arrow that he has in the Clone Wars, you don't really differentiate this clone trooper from any other one. So you can go ahead and army build the living daylights out of it. I'm probably going to wait for the price to come down on this guy before I army build him a little bit, but I'm definitely more in favor of tracking down this figure and buying more of this one than I would be going looking for that old Archive 501st figure. I don't know, something about that old articulation just ain't doing it for me anymore now that I've seen how good this figure can be. So whether you have him as Commander Apo or whether he's just a nameless 501st Clone Trooper, this figure is absolutely brilliant. I don't usually put army builders and clones on the top 10 lists for the year, but this one came very, very close when I was knocking up my draft. Now, the whole point of the Kentucky Toy Hunt was to track down those Target exclusives, the Apo and the Dual Zen Kenobi Vader. I didn't come away with that Vader, but I did come away with the 40th anniversary Vader, and this guy looks so cool. I'm so happy with him. We've all seen images of that original blue line Darth Vader with the removable helmet, no neck whatsoever, and the saddest puppy dog eyes you've ever seen on a Darth Vader. I don't know, man, considering that the Black Series was still in there, we're doing the definitive versions of every character. I don't think anybody calls that Vader definitive in any stretch of the imagination. This one makes up for it like you would not believe. It is so cool. I'm pretty sure it's the A New Hope Vader body, which explains the lack of like butterfly joints and whatnot, but really, I don't want this Darth Vader figure fighting. I've got plenty of other Darth Vader figures to stand in my Emperor's Throne Room, or my Bespin display, or my Death Star versus Obi-Wan Kenobi display. I don't need him for that. What I need him for is just one localized display of Luke saying goodbye to his father with his helmet off. And this figure does that beautifully. It looks so good, just sort of crumpled up on the floor in Anakin's last moments, and I think it is perfect. I absolutely adore it. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy that it comes with the mask, the helmet, the lightsaber, and a replaceable hand for the cut-off one. I'm very grateful they've included all that, and I'm not going to say no to it, but really, this is what I want. I just want this last moment to be immortalized on my shelf, and I will be so pleased. And you know what? When it comes to it, when my basement is finished and my display room is built, this is going to go on the shelf. It's going to look so good. I'm so pleased. Well, here we go again. It is that time of the year once again, and the Black Series are getting back to their old habits. They have released a new line of holiday Black Series figures. I am so happy with this because I love this line. I love this little gimmick. It's so cool, and I know it's not for everyone. I get it if it's not for you. I get it if you want like real in-universe figures. This just makes me happy. So I've already tracked down 3 of these guys. We've already picked up the Holiday Mandalorian Scout, the KX Security Droid, and the new Snow Trooper. And we've already set up our holiday display with all of our Black Series figures out. We've got our 1225th Festive Legion out on patrol, and they all look fantastic. These guys are no exception to that. I love the ingenuity behind some of these designs. They are so cool. The KX droid just makes me happy. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a KX droid droid, so it's not going to stand. But you could just have him sitting on your shelf and he looks great. And just like we affectionately named our Holiday Protocol droid SNOE, we've also affectionately named our new KX droid as KX-MAS. Because what's the point of having holiday deco Star Wars figures if you're not going to come up with Christmassy pun names for them? These figures are great. I know they're not for everyone. They are very much for me, so I'm very pleased with all of them, and I will be looking for the other ones as well. I'm pretty sure we still have to track down the Jawa, the Ewok. I think there might be another one. I'm not sure. I don't have the list in front of me. So yeah, they're out there somewhere and I will find them. Up next is kind of a mixed bag because it is the Magna Guard figure. Now this is a guy who, he made the shortlist for my Revenge of the Sith wish list, but he didn't quite make the list itself. And seeing the figure in execution, I can kind of see maybe why I knocked it off. It's decent. Don't get me wrong. I don't want you to sit here and think that I'm going to sit here and slag off this figure, because I'm not going to do that. It's cool. It looks good when it's standing and when it's on display and you get it in a really cool pose. The trick is getting it into that pose. I've got the same problem that a lot of people have with this figure. My shoulder pad pops off with the slightest bit of pressure. So really it comes down to you have to pose the figure first and then just pop the shoulder pad back on. The legs weren't too bowed in the box. Like, we're still talking about plastic-free packaging here, so they were decent, they were well preserved, and the accessories came out great. I was really worried about those staffs, but they look great, and they've really done well. The legs, it's difficult to tell, looking at the engineering on the leg, like, what's a joint and what's just plastic. Like, I haven't broken a toy for over 10 years. Not since my old, NECA Predator figures that both snapped off at the forearm. But I felt really on edge trying to pose this guy because I could never tell, like, is this joint bending or is the plastic just giving? Like, is it just gonna go? And it's a crying shame because it is a really well done figure. It looks great. I'm not thrilled with the soft goods on it. Like, I don't know what the thought behind the shoulder fold was. It looks like a completely separate bit of soft goods, and I thought it was all supposed to be one robe that was kind of like wrapped up and then draped over their shoulders. So I don't know, man. This guy is kind of a mixed bag for me. Like, he makes me very happy. Like, he looks good standing next to Grievous. It's just the effort of getting him there and like how much you have to fight this figure for it to do what you want it to do. I do plan on going out and buying a second one, but the plan was to get like 2 of them just right off the bat. And I'm actually kind of grateful that I only found the one, because I will probably wait for the price to come down a little bit before I go out and buy another. Because, I don't know, I really hope the second one is better. Maybe it's just I've got one of the bad ones and the legs aren't great and the shoulder pad obviously isn't great. Maybe you can glue the shoulder pad. I don't know. It's just, for a figure that I was looking forward to, it is a lot more hard work than I would like it to be. And I'm going to leave it at that because, as I say, I don't want to rain on this figure because it is cool and I am glad they did it. I don't know, I feel like something just got lost in translation from the idea to the final realized product, and that's where I'll leave that. Up next is another figure that I ummed and ahed over for a little while. It is the Ahsoka Series variant of Ahsoka Tano. It's the return of my favorite Black Series figure of all time. The Corvus Ahsoka mold returns once again, and the reason I hesitated so much is because I couldn't see that much of a difference between the Mandalorian variant and the Ahsoka variant. And, ultimately I was just like, you know what? This is the best mold in the line. This is the best figure that they've ever done. Of course I'm going to buy another one. So I did. I went out and I bought another one and I put the 2 next to each other. And I think it's another one of those situations where if I drop them on the floor, I might be able to identify that the 2 of them are different. If I drop them on the floor with my eyes closed, could I tell which one was which? Probably not. I feel like the face looks better on the new one. I thought for a moment that the head tails were slightly longer. On closer inspection, it must have just been the angle. But that doesn't detract from the fact that this is still the best figure that they've ever done. I absolutely adore it. I'm very happy to get another one in my collection. And yeah, just being able to use the Ahsoka figure in a Mandalorian display without taking her away from another display, that makes me happy. I'm just happy I've got 2 of these now. And in that respect, I got everything that I wanted out of this figure. maybe it could have come with something else. Like something, I don't know, something to really entice you to come back and buy it. Because I don't need a ton of persuading. I didn't need a ton of persuading to get this one. It's, as I say, I love the original, I love the new one. Maybe we could have had something else in the box. Like, just something. Hey, maybe that robe that they put in that Amazon exclusive 3-pack, that could have made a return for this figure. And that, I think, would have banished any and all qualms I had about buying it. As I say, I still went out, I still bought it. I'm still very, very pleased with it. Next up is another figure from the Ahsoka line. It's Professor Huyang. I found this on a chance trip into a Walmart, where I also came away with the KX Security Holiday Droid, and this guy is so good. I know that the Ahsoka line so far has been kind of hit or miss, but this one is an absolute hit as far as I'm concerned. The coloring doesn't bother me that much. He looks okay to me. I mean, I see more like the animated version that I saw in the Clone Wars than I see the live action version, and I suppose if that's the version you were looking for, then yeah, it's gonna need some work. But I love everything about this. The Black Series does droids so well, and this is another standout example of that. He's got his little arms that come out of his backpack to kind of rearrange his things, and I love it so much. The little practice saber that he comes with, and the data pad that maybe should have come with Tech, because I was sorely tempted to just give it to him. Yeah, I love this character, and I love this figure. It's so cool, it's so good, and it is a fine addition to my collection indeed. And the final addition to my collection from the past 2 months is possibly one of the most controversial figures we had this year, because it's a figure that I asked for a long time ago back on my Clone Wars wish list, and they finally did it, but it was the execution that caused the controversy. It's Pre Vizsla. I found Pre Vizsla in the same Walmart as I found Huyang, and I'm very conflicted. I'm very conflicted, because a lot like a lot of other people, I was disappointed when I found out it was going to be the old Jango mold. No disrespect to that mold. It does Jango very well, but it is so old. Like, we're talking about, like, wave 1 of the Red Line. I feel like it was wave 1 or wave 2. That's the kind of time period we're talking about. This was a long time ago, in a galaxy far away, that this figure came out, and now they've repurposed the mold to give us Pre Vizsla, and it has a lot of the same problems that the original figure had with Jango, but something about how he looks when you do finally get him to stand up, it just makes it so worth it. I said that the Magna Guard was kind of a frustrating figure, but then when you get the Magna Guard posed, it's kind of cool to look at. Pre Vizsla is frustrating to pose because of his antiquated articulation, but once you get him posed, once you get him standing, maybe you use like a discreet little base to keep him upright, he looks so imposing on that old body. He's so bulky and powerful looking, and the way they've nailed his head sculpt with that incredible lightsaber scar across his face, it looks perfect, and it kind of decimates any and all problems that I have about using that old body. Now, would a Death Watch Mando body have been better? Probably. If you're talking about articulation, probably. It would probably have been better that way. Would a Death Watch Mando based Pre Vizsla look this imposing on a shelf? Absolutely not. Axe Woves doesn't look imposing, and he's on the same body. This Pre Vizsla figure just has something that I can't even put my finger on. He just looks so cool. He really nails that cool factor, and that, as I say, makes up completely for the decision to put him on that old body. I almost don't even care anymore. Yeah, it's the Jango body. What of it? It's still a fantastic figure. I had to fight the urge to put it on my top 10 best of the year, just because I knew what a fuss that would cause. You may not be able to get, like, the most dynamic poses out of him. You might not be able to really pull off a cool Pre Vizsla versus Maul, like, epic duel pose, but you know what you can do? You can pull off a really imposing neutral stance with this Pre Vizsla, and he looks incredible. Helmet on, helmet off, I don't care. This is a great figure. I'm really sticking my neck out here, because I know it's controversial, and I know people are very upset, but I am not. I got it in hand, and I love it. Pre Vizsla is probably one of the best figures I've added to my collection this last 2 months. So there you have it. Those were the fine additions to my collection from the months of October and November, so let me pass this subject off to you as I always like to do. What were some new additions to your collection this month? You get a really, really great figure that made you really happy? Did you pick up one that maybe you weren't sure about? I'd love to hear people's feedback on both the Magna Guard and Pre Vizsla if you have them in hand. As I say, I know they're both pretty controversial figures. Like, the Magna Guard has been making some bottom of the worst figures of the year lists, and Pre Vizsla, people have been talking about him since he was announced, and as soon as they revealed what body he was going to be on. I want to know if anyone had the same experience I did, where they got him in hand and it just blew all that away. So yeah, let me know down below. I'm always interested to hear from you, and I will always respond back to each and every one of you. Coming up next week on the channel, we are going back to the wishlist series with my top 5 picks for characters from The Force Awakens that I would like to see come to the Black Series. I can't believe the wishlist series is kind of winding down towards the end when we said, yeah, let's do a wishlist for every movie, show, and game that we can think of that come from Star Wars canon. I don't think we realised what a mammoth undertaking that was going to be, and it is incredibly gratifying to be getting close to the end. That doesn't mean that wishlists are going away. Wishlists are never going away. Like, we'll probably talk about, figures that we've wished for that have actually made it into the line. We'll probably talk about my top 10, overall picks, from the entire series. What are the 10 that I really, really want? Yeah, it's gonna be really good. We'll keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, however, I've been Grand Moff Tony. Those were the fine additions to my collection from the months of October and November. You may subscribe when ready. I have a belly full of chicken.